for the opportunity to share my story. You guys, I'm a little embarrassed because I've been getting work done on my mouth, but you know what? I'm not gonna let that stop me from speaking from my heart to you guys because somebody may need to hear this. So this is me. This
Listen,
is my
girl,
authentic.
no shame in your game. Do your thing.
Oh, thank you. This is my authentic, pure self. This is just who I am. Where do you want me to start?
Start at the
Julie?
beginning. Let's start on the day that he got you. The book that we are writing for Leesha is called Why Did He Choose Me?
Okay, I was 15. I had just turned 15, and my mother has a sister that had some daughters that were close in age with me. I didn't have a sister. I had two little brothers at the time, and came from an abused house. Stepfather abusing me. I was the only one wasn't his child, and I was being abused there. So my mother moved me and my brothers away from my grandparents' house, who raised my two cousins. And every chance I got, I would try to see them when it was at school or whatever. Well, one of my cousins, she and I are the same age. I'm 5 months older than her. She introduced me. She told me, this is how she said, Leesha, my boyfriend uncle wants to meet you, and he's going to give me $200 to do the introduction. And at first, my heart started beating fast because I knew she was only 15 and she was seeing a guy that was 27. And I'm like, oh my God, my mom's not going to let me even have a boyfriend. I can't do that. She said, just meet him so I can get the money. And so even though I felt like, no, I shouldn't do this, I went ahead just trying to please her, just happy to be with them. We're introduced, I meet him, and immediately I tell him right off, you're too old for me, you're older than my mother, and I'm 15, you're 39, but I'm like, what does he want with me? So my cousin was nudging me saying, just talk to the man, just talk to the man. And I'm like, I don't even know what to say to no man, to a boy, let alone because she didn't allow me to have boyfriends. So we meet, and I tell him, I'm uncomfortable with meeting and talking with you. You're too old for me. So he said, just stand here and listen. He's trying to, I guess, prove to me that he has all this stuff and all the lavish lifestyle and everything. And so we part ways. He started coming by my school. I would see him at lunchtime and I started hiding because I did not want to be seen by him or see any of my mother friends who worked at the school, went to church with her. Somebody report I'm talking to a grown man. So I would kind of hide. It was just an uncomfortable situation all the way around. Then one weekend, my mother's sister had a card game. They do that a lot here in the South, card games and fish fries. So I was invited to be excuse me, you guys. I was invited to be a waitress. My grandmother talked my mother into allowing me to go. I went. The whole night for my aunt was a success. Later on that night, like 12 o'clock, my cousins and a couple of the girls that were hanging with us, they said, come on, let's go back to town by Rose Tavern where the big timers be. I quickly obliged. I'm just happy to be with them. I'm excited. I'm out of the house. I can be a girl, a teenager. I'm just happy and I love my cousins so much like my sisters. So we go to this place. It was a famous Rose Tavern here in New Orleans. I guess at that time, I didn't understand what it meant, but it was famous for all the big time dope dealers and drug kingpins. All those people hung there. So we go back there. Immediately, he spots us coming in. He walked up to me. My heart is racing. I'm scared. I'm like, I don't want to talk to this man. Why do we have to be here? So I'm like, I want to go back. They say, well, it's late. You're not going to go back by yourself. So they part ways, leave me standing at the bar by myself. He approached me. He asked me, do I want to drink? I said, nope, I don't drink. And he said, well, what do you want? I said, well, I'll take a Coca-Cola. I don't remember, but next morning, I woke up in a hotel near the airport. It was called a Hotel on Airline Highway. I wake up in the hotel, I'm sore, blood's everywhere. So I know that I done had sex, but I jump up and I'm panicking because it's daytime. I'm like, oh my God, my mom, I'm thinking like a child, my mother's gonna whoop me if she find out I've been out all night. I end up finding out where I was at, look out the window, and I noticed that I was close to my grandmother's sister's house. So I immediately get dressed, but I see a note where he said, don't leave, I'll be back. So quickly I leave, run to her house. She makes long story short, she asks me what I'm doing there. I tell her, I don't tell her about him, I'm scared. So I just said, oh, I came up here to visit you guys. And so I'm like, I got to get home before my mom and them know I've been gone. So I go back to my grandmother's house. Nobody even noticed that I wasn't there, that I wasn't even home all night. My cousins are not there. So finally I see them and they're like, oh, you're in. That's the big man. I'm like, I don't want to be with that man. I don't even know what happened. They were like, what do you mean? You don't know what happened. But at that time in the 80s, I didn't know anything about somebody could put something in your drink to possibly harm you. I didn't have a clue that that's probably they had to have been what happened, because I don't remember. So I ended up being forced to be in a relationship with him. When he did catch up with me, he basically told me, "You're gonna be with me. That's it. And that's all. I don't want to hear about you can't, you will." And so my stepfather, like a couple of weeks later, he ended up beating on me and he hit me in my face. I had a bruise under my eye. And when he saw the bruise, he said, "Either you're gonna live or I'm gonna kill everybody in the house." So I end up being forced in a relationship with him from 15 until 19. I have a 35-year-old daughter with him. I ended up getting pregnant. That was the happiest day of my life, because I feel like, well, maybe he loved the baby. Maybe that'll stop him from beating on me and forcing me to have sex. But it was like a cycle of abuse that I had never, ever even imagined. I thought I was leaving. When I agreed to leave, I was out of fear, but then I agreed too, because I didn't want to be beat on anymore by my stepdad. But that situation was worse than I had even been abused by my stepdad. It was worse with the man. So I ended up leaving with him and forced to be with him until the night of the incident, when I ended up shooting him. So is that where you want me to shop, or you want me to go further? I can't hear you.
Keep going and tell us about your experience being in prison and not being able to look after your baby.
Okay, when I went to first going through the county jail, going through all the legalities of everything, I didn't have a clue about how to defend myself, how to fight for myself. But I got tired of trying to speak up, and nobody was really listening to what I was trying to say about the beatings. I felt like they were like, just didn't want to hear it, or there was no such thing as that. So I ended up taking a plea bargain for 15 to life. I thought you do half and go home. I had felt guilty, and I had blamed myself for everything that had happened to me, because I feel like it's my fault. If my own family beat on me, this man beat on me, it has to be me. I quickly took account for that. And I feel like it was my fault. I deserved prison time. But when I got to prison, as we were getting off the bus, they had the line of the girls, introducing themselves. "Hi, I'm so-and-so. I'm doing 5 to life, and I've been incarcerated 32 years. As it went down the line, it got to be where people had did up to 40 years off of 7 to life. Here I have 15 to life plus 2 years for a gun. I'm like, oh God, I'm never going to get out of here. I'm going to die here. Those were my words. I feel like I'm already 19. I'm going to be 20. I'm going to die here. So I thought this immediately. I thought I was going to die. So we go through, but I remember looking up at the sky and I said, "God, I don't know what I've gotten myself into, but I know you're real. I need you to step in and take control of my life. Please don't let me die here or be here all my life and don't be able to live or fulfill none of my dreams." And I said, "Please, God, I don't know where the year." I said, "Lord, just let me be out here by the time I'm 45 or 46. I got out, found suitable for parole at 45 and was released at 46. But throughout that whole cycle of being in there, I went from up and down, from blaming myself to looking at solutions on why. Going to school for alcoholism to try to figure out my stepdad's personality, but never once did I forgive myself up until I was like 33 years old, 33 or 34 years old, did I finally forgive myself for what I had did, because I ultimately thought it was my fault. And my great grandmother would always say, "Leesha, you baptized at 5, you know the Bible, you know the word. Look at all the people in the Bible that God has used mightily for their life. You're no different. You're going to have a story where you can share and help other people that have been abused. We knew what was happening with you, and I'm sorry that I never stepped in to help." She said, "But I'm an old woman. Who was going to listen to me?" And she just told me, "Use your life as an example." So people were drawn to me even when I first got there. Staff would always say, "Miss Leesha, you're from a different cut of cloth. You're different than these people here. Your ideas, the way you think, the way you talk, your personality has been consistent." And I never saw what they saw in me. I just always had a kind heart, because I believe in love. I believe in fairy tales. And I think I got that from my dad's side of the family. My grandmother and them smothered me with affection and love, because I didn't get that at home. My mother never said, "I love you." And if I pressed the issue, she was very uncomfortable. And to this day, she's very uncomfortable with it. But it began a chain of me going up and down. And then finally, I started working the steps that they gave. I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, even though I wasn't alcoholic. I worked those steps, and something just clicked on in my head that it doesn't have to be drug, it doesn't have to be alcoholic, but if you're addicted to any type of behavior that is not normal, then that is an addiction. And I had got addicted to being abused and beat on, so I had an addiction. So I used the steps, I just reversed what the words meant and using and applied it to my life. Once I started taking accountability for me and realizing that everything that those people did to me was not my fault, then my life began to change and a light was turned on. And so I started sharing my stories, or people heard about I was with a drug kingpin and people wanted to be around me. And I started just telling them about my childhood, the life that I lived, what I've been through, how much abuse that I went through. And people start getting out, writing back saying, Miss Leesha, thank you for sharing your story. You changed my life. I started hearing stuff like that. So that started making me want to educate myself more, to participate in more group therapy, to participate in just one-on-ones with people, young girls looking for mothers and looking for love. And I had a daughter, so I loved on them as if it was my daughter. I just said, I hope wherever my daughter is, she's being loved on, but in all actuality, my daughter was being abused just like I was by my stepfather, but they kept that hidden from me. But inside those walls, I just tried to love the next person the same way I wanted to be loved. How I still knew how to love, I knew it was nobody but the power of God. Because they no matter how many beatings I received, they couldn't kill that, they couldn't crush that. They couldn't stop me from being the person that I knew that I'm supposed to be. And I'm still learning who I am, but one thing for certain, two things is for sure, I know I'm supposed to help somebody else, not go through what I went through, because it was a very dark and lonely place to not have nobody to call on to help. As a child growing up, just lost. I felt like I was in the whole world with nobody that loved me. No matter, even if people told me they loved me or cared about me, the one person I wanted it from was my mother. And I didn't get that. I felt like she was supposed to love, and I still love, I love my mother unconditionally, and she's done no wrong in my eyes, because I know because of the education that she is a battered woman. And so recently I had to step back because I was constant. I got out of prison in 2012. I moved back to New Orleans in 2015 because maybe when I was in prison, I had got sick and I died and I came back. I had a massive stroke, and I think I told myself that I came from a functional family because I came back to New Orleans looking for that love. And I'm never gonna find it because the people who did love me, my grandparents, they're not here. Looking for something, I don't know what I was searching for, and I thought I would get it from my family, and it has been disappointment after disappointment, but my love has never died. I still love them. I still want them to know what pure love is, with no limitation, without anybody wanting from you. And my mother believed that, well, didn't I take care of you? Didn't I do this? Didn't I do that? That's not love. I would rather have seen her for 20 something years than got a package from her or some money in the mail. That meant more to me than anything. Or when I didn't get a visit, I never got visits from nobody for 20 something years. The people there loved me more than my own family, and they raised me. And I'm glad that I paid attention, and I'm glad that the love that I have for people didn't die. I just knew somehow that that wasn't my destiny, that wasn't what I was supposed to be, just somebody thrown in prison with the key thrown away. I knew that life had something more meaningful for me, and I'm gonna keep living out the rest of my days until I can help somebody or get that self-gratification that you get when you meet somebody and they tell you that by you sharing their story, it has changed their life. Money doesn't matter to me like it used to. I won't say I was so involved with what he was doing, but I was spoiled by my daddy's people, beat at home, spoiled by my daddy people. Then I went from my mother to the man. Then he gave me all the money in the world, but it came with ass whoopings. It came with sexual abuse. It came with all this different stuff. Be quiet, you better not say nothing, all this stuff. So that's not important to me anymore. What's important is seeing other people happy and just bringing in pure, innocent joy. And that's what I live for today. And I had to learn to separate myself and pull back from my family because they were constantly, I was being mentally abused all over again, even though I thought that I was healed because of what I had learned in prison. Nobody prepares you for rejection from your own family. Nobody can prepare you for that. They prepare you in prison for how to get out, get a job, how to stay away from bad people, but nobody think about that you may be rejected from your own family. So I had to learn the hard way. And I'm finally getting it together where I'm not crying all the time and I'm not hurting and I'm not wanting to see myself hurt or make myself look ugly because I feel like they don't love me. So who would? There are people that love me. There are people need to hear what I got to say. And I know from experience, from what people have shared with me, that I have helped them. So I'm going to continue to press forward. And it is an honor to be even thought of in the same category as you ladies. It is an honor. Because we as one, we can change a lot of lives. We really can. But we have to believe. I had to learn to believe. I had to learn to believe the words that I was speaking because I would tell myself daily affirmations all the time. I was just saying it because it was just a word. But once I started to believe it, is when I started to see the change. It's a difference than saying something to make yourself feel better. But when you believe it, you really see the change. And I have been taught from my mom, you could let those white people make you mad at me, you'll make me stop talking to you. So that fear of me listening and supporting and sharing in groups or talking about her business with other people, but she don't have that power over me anymore. Just the love will never die because that's my mother, but I'm not gonna let nobody else have that type of power where they could constantly hurt me over and over, because I know I don't deserve it. I deserve to be able to live and laugh and know what love. I don't even know what love is. I think I know because I met somebody, but I really don't know. I don't know what it's supposed to feel good with another man, how it's supposed to feel intimate. I still don't know a lot of things. And then I'll ask questions and people look at me like I'm crazy. I'm tired of being ashamed. I'm tired of lying. I'm tired of covering up for everybody. No more. Now it's time for me to finally live. And I finally realized that my birthday is in 17 days on the 19th. No, 16 days, 18 days. I'm gonna be 53. From this day forward, I started on the January 1st. I'm going to live for me. I don't care. I'm not gonna beg my daughter to love me. I'm not gonna beg her to let me see my grandkids. They know I love them, and that's all I can do is just be true to me and unauthentically and brutally honest with everybody I meet. And that's all I want.